New Zealand is a paradise for travelers who love the outdoors. Its South Island is especially known for stunning natural beauty. While we all know that the stunning Queenstown is termed as the adventure capital of the world, and almost everyone includes Queenstown in their itinerary. Aoraki or Mt.Cook National Park's mountain scenery is equally spectacular and deserves a visit. Majestic Mt.Cook, New Zealand's tallest mountain at 12,000 feet, is unquestionably the park's alpine crown jewel. There are many engaging activities which you can do while you are in Mt.Cook National Park, but the most recommended activity is Glacier Explorer Cruise. Here is your chance to see icebergs up close and personal, and even touch and taste centuries-old glacial ice. A Glacier Explorer Cruise on the Tasman Lake really is a must-do when you visit Mt.Cook. After a refreshing half-hour walk to the terminal lake of the Tasman Glacier, an experienced guide will whisk you away in a stable boat to explore the melting ice face of the Tasman Glacier and icebergs that have carved into its murky waters. The lake feels incredibly awesome as the boat cruises slowly for 1 hour from one point of interest to the next, while the guide imparts the history of the glacier, lake and Mt.Cook National Park, allowing you to build your own picture to the unique nature of the area. All this plus an awesome backdrop of New Zealand's highest and most spectacular mountains, including Mt.Cook and Mount Tasman.
Now, 60 years ago, the glacier itself used to be, the whole glacier used to be much bigger. You can see the lateral moraine, that big pile of dirt along the side, or gravel. 60 years ago, the top of it used to reach that. So you could step off the moraine straight onto the glacier itself. 30 years ago, that whole wall used to rest against that, so the terminal moraine. So the glacier is retreating about 150 meters a year. It's melting away all the time, which means this lake is only 30 years old.
It is a small iceberg, but remember, this iceberg, just like any other iceberg you ever see, it's floating. Now, because it's floating, it means we can only see the very top. This part above the water is the tip of the iceberg. This is only 10%. 90% is still below. So, to put it into perspective, if this piece above the water is 2 times the size of the boat, and it is roughly that, then you have 18 times the size of the boat underwater.
Wow.
So keep that in mind as I spin the boat till the other side can touch it as well. So every single iceberg you see on the water, there's 9 times that much ice below.
How old is this piece of ice?
Well, this ice itself, and actually every single iceberg you see on the lake today, is at least 300 years old, closer to 600 years old. I'm talking about the ice itself. Remember,
this floated nearly 3 to 600 years ago.
Correct. So remember, every single piece of ice you see on the lake today comes from the glacier. Every time a piece breaks, it ends up floating in the lake, and then it gets pushed around by the wind. But this ice originally fell as snow up at the top of the glacier. Yes, the answer was yes, between 300 to 600 years ago.
Mt.Cook is a national park. There is no real town, just the tiny Mt.Cook village, providing park visitors with needed services. Lodging options include the historic and upscale Hermitage Hotel, self-catering chalets, camping areas, and several backpacker lodges.
This, again, only 10%, and as we keep on going around it, it'll start to give you a real sense of scale. Now, I want you also to notice how it's melting. Look at that corner. It looks like it drained. Now, this 10% that's floating above the water is exposed to the wind, to the sun at a higher temperature. So it's constantly melting, which means this 10% is shrinking. And as it keeps on dripping away, it'll stop being 10% and it'll perhaps become 9%, 8%, 7%. And the only way for the iceberg to rebalance is going to be by lifting out of the water. And the higher it goes, the more unbalanced it becomes, the higher its center of gravity goes, it'll start to wobble, and eventually it can roll over. Now the second thing that can happen, and that's what's going to happen to this one, is when a piece breaks off, the iceberg will have to compensate for that weight. See this big block up here? That big block will break off. At some point, we don't know when, but it will break off. And when the iceberg loses a big chunk all at once, that entire iceberg will have to compensate. And to put it into perspective, that block above the water, that's about 25 to 30 tons of ice. When it loses 25 to 30 tons of ice this way, then 25 to 30 tons of ice from underwater will need to compensate. And that could be enough to make it roll over. Now, take its total height and put it on top of itself 9 times. This iceberg will have at least 25 meters vertically. At least. What do you think will happen if it rolls over to that side? Then 25 meters of ice that are going down need to come out somewhere. We want to make sure we're not sitting on top of that somewhere. And this one is particularly dangerous because it has that big block over there, but that big corner over there where the crack's starting to develop. So you have 2 possibilities for this iceberg breaking. So when we assess icebergs, that's what we're looking for. How likely is it for a piece to break off? And what would happen if it does? Even the texture will be different. But you can see how it's ending up quite dirty as it melts down. The rock that was frozen inside just ends up on top. So the cycle for an iceberg will go from really clear or even blue ice to slightly more cracked like the ones you were holding, to whiter, and super brittle, to dirty, and then pieces break off, the iceberg tilts, and the process starts again. But look at this, just peeling away.
How deep's the lake now, guys?
Where we are at the moment, about 140 meters. That Titanic moment. Hopefully not, right? Don't worry, I read this in a book once.
ಬ್ರೇಕ್ ಅಲ್ಲ ಅದು ಮೂವ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ
Gonna roll all the way, there we go. Look at the different textures. But it's probably not enough, so it might start to come back, but now it's going to find a new center of balance. And the process will start over. And what I did with the boat is exactly what the wind does to them. You can see that groove again, see? Yeah. Right there. And speaking about grooves, as we start to head up to the lake, we're going to just cruise in front of that big one. You can see a pretty decent groove or a pretty decent thermal notch where that entire monster iceberg has lifted about 2 meters.
Nearly 1/3 of all glacier ice in New Zealand lies within the Tasman Glacier, a huge sheet of ice stretching across the side of Mt.Tasman and Mt.Cook. This enormous natural phenomena terminates into a glacial lake, which is expanding every day. Huge chunks of ice break off from the glacier and float in the cold blue waters of the lake. The bright azure water contrasts the surrounding snow-capped mountains, creating a landscape that is breathtaking. This glacier has been carving the landscape of the Southern Alps for over 2 million years, crafting deep abyss from the surrounding greywacke rock. Witnessing the sheer scale and power of this natural shelf of ice is one of the highlights of traveling to the South Island of New Zealand. Tasman Glacier is 27 km long, making it the longest in New Zealand. The Tasman Glacier is the source of the popular and beautiful Lake Pukaki, which was created by the receding ice carving the rock over thousands of years. This glacier was formed over 18,000 years ago during the last ice age. Unfortunately, the glacier is only growing at the rate of 80 meters per year, which is not enough to combat the speed of its retreat. There is no bad time to visit Tasman Glacier, as each part of the year offers something different. Be prepared for rapidly changing weather when you are visiting Tasman Glacier, as this lies in Alpine region. The best time to visit for ideal weather is during the New Zealand summer from December to April. However, if you visit Tasman Lake during the New Zealand winter, you will experience colder weather but fewer crowd and more peaceful surroundings. This is also a great time of the year to see icebergs at its best. So do you want to see snow on the peak of the Mt.Cook? Well, you will see some snow in any season, but the snow will be lower down the mountain in late autumn, winter and early spring. However, keep in mind that since this region lies at high elevation, it can occasionally get snowed in during the winter as well. Also, you may not be able to do boat tours in the winter months. Many glacial lake cruise companies operate from the middle of September to late May, as the lake freezes over the winter. So don't forget to do the Tasman Glacier tour when you are in Mt.Cook. Road trips anywhere in the world can be a delightful escape, but coasting along New Zealand's fairy empty highways full of picture postcard views elevates road tripping to a whole new level. New Zealand is a nation of just 5 million, but while small in numbers and size, there is no shortage of stunning sights to see and action-packed adventures to have. New Zealand is a one-stop shop for all your travel desires, whether it is sightseeing, adrenaline seeking or beach going. I hope you liked this video. If yes, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to our channel for more amazing videos. Thank you.